Hey, this is Ginger Wildheart. You're listening to Thunder Underground.
Welcome to episode 413 of the Thunder Underground podcast. Trent here as always, and this week's great because Ginger Wildheart of the Wildhearts is here on the podcast. Pretty exciting for me to say I've been a longtime fan of Ginger and the Wildhearts dating back to the 90s. He's got a huge array of music throughout his nearly 35-year career with the Wildhearts, other projects. He's written with tons of artists. He's extremely prolific in the writing world and everything that he does. I'm just super happy to be able to get this one out to you, hear everything that Ginger has to say about not just his music, about his life, mental health, about rock and roll, and everything in between. But before we jump into that, I need to let you know who sponsors this podcast, and I have an announcement that pertains to that. But first, let me tell you that Sunset Tattoo is a tattoo shop located in Midtown Tulsa. Their tattoos are done good and proper. They're state licensed, they're Native American owned, and they have a female artist on staff full time. Give them a call, shoot them a message, set up a time to get a consultation about what work you're looking to have done. If you have an idea ready to go, or if you're looking for help, they can definitely help you with that. Hit up their socials. Facebook and Instagram are both Sunset Tattoo Tulsa. Follow them on both those. There's tons of photos where you can check out all the work there. I've personally had tattoos done a couple different times by Jake, and I'm going to have more in the future. Well over 25 years of experience from Jake and his crew. Great place, great organization, great people. So give Sunset Tattoo a call and tell them you heard about them right here. DEB Concerts, our longest running sponsor. It's a promoter based in the Tulsa area. They have brought tons of great acts to the downtown Tulsa area for the last 8 or 9 years at both the club level and the arena level. And the last several years, they've booked the DEB Concerts Roadhouse stage at Rocklahoma. This year is no different. The Rocklahoma lineup was just announced last week, and the DEB Concert stage will feature the pre-party if you have a 3-day ticket, and that pre-party on Thursday before Rocklahoma will be headlined by Dee Snider, who, guess what, is a former guest of this podcast. It'll also feature Trickster, who, guess what, 2 members of that band are former members of this podcast. It'll also feature an unannounced act, but if you kind of look at that blur, you can figure out who it is. But I'm going to do my journalistic integrity here and not say it out loud. But, I'm sure you can figure it out. But what is easy to figure out is that the rest of the days on the DB concert stage will feature Orianthi. I mean, how great is that? Never thought I'd get the chance to see her live. I've also got Mike Tramp, of course, of White Lion fame, performing all the songs of White Lion. He was on this podcast just this past summer talking about those new White Lion albums he has out. I've also got Van Halen, a great Van Halen tribute. Great friends of this podcast, and Dime Store Riot and Fist of Rage, who have both been on this podcast multiple times. One Night Stand, another great Tulsa band that'll be on the Rocklahoma lineup. Check out rocklahoma.com for the entire lineup, not just for DB Concerts stage, but for the main stage and the second stage, which features artists like the mighty Bruce Dickinson of Iron Maiden, Alice Cooper, Shine Down, 3 Days Grace, Marilyn Manson. The list is great and long. Check it out. Hit up DEB Concerts. Follow them on the socials. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram are all at DEB Concerts. All right, so I alluded to an announcement. And speaking of Rocklahoma, this ties in very much to that. If you are one of those people that listen to this podcast that are from this area of the country, or even if you're not, I've got friends that I know through Rocklahoma that are from as far away as California, Canada, Florida, New York that come every year, so you don't definitely actually have to be from this region. But the point is, if you've been at Rocklahoma for a few years, especially if you've been in the campgrounds or in the VIP section, you're probably familiar with Rocklahoma Bitches. Rocklahoma Bitches have been a mainstay at Rocklahoma since 2011. They've been there every year since. They've become well known for having tons of Rocklahoma Bitches swag, whether it be t-shirts, laminates, the rubber wristbands, stickers, pins, hats, the clear see-through bags that you can use at Rocklahoma and many other events these days. All that great stuff that they freely throw out to the masses like it's Mardi Gras. There's no charge ever for Rocklahoma Bitches swag. That's why people love them. Rocklahoma Bitches, did I even say they are the newest sponsor to this podcast, which is where I was going with all this. I'm, of course, going to talk about this a little longer than I normally would talk about a sponsor, just because this is kind of the intro to them being a sponsor on Thunder Underground. Both Christy and Kendra, great people to hang out with, great people to talk to. They're both very giving. They donate to nonprofit organizations. Rocklahoma Bitches has sponsored the Cancer Sucks benefit concert that happens every year in November, December in Tulsa. They've sponsored that the last several years. Every year at Rocklahoma, as many of you know, one of the things Rocklahoma does every year is auctions off autographed guitars. And these guitars, will go from, I've seen them go for a few thousand, upwards of 20,000 plus. The autographs will be autographed, of course, by the headliners playing this year at Rocklahoma, sometimes by donated guitars, but usually by artists that are performing the current year. And I'm bringing all this up because Christy of Rocklahoma Bitches is one of the people that I believe she's won at least one guitar every single year. She's out there bidding every year. And she does it because she loves to give to charity and because she loves rock and roll. But Rocklahoma Bitches do charity work. They also do, fun Rocklahoma style work, where if you're at Rocklahoma, you'll see them traveling around the campsites. They MC some campground events. They host some campground events. I guess those two words would go hand in hand, but there's events that happen every year at like the Big Old Bus, formerly at like Dark Side Stage and Camp Yeager and all that. Camp Mardi Gras is another one they're always at. They get out there, they help keep the spirit of Rocklahoma alive, by just having a good time. So with all that being said, I would like to say welcome to Rocklahoma Bitches for joining the Thunder Underground party. And I'm looking forward to another great year of Rocklahoma and getting to see these two lovely ladies. So if you're not someone that is aware of Rocklahoma Bitches and you're on Facebook, just type in Rocklahoma Bitches and a couple exclamation points and join that group. There's 5,000 plus people in there. It's a great fun time. There's also a group called I Got Kicked Out of Rocklahoma Bitches. I'm not in that group yet. Maybe I should join, but I figure, honesty, I should wait until I get kicked out to join it. No, maybe not. I'm sure it's funner to just join now. But anyway, Rocklahoma Bitches, hit them up, and thank you again for joining us as a sponsor right here on Thunder Underground. All right, now that I've rambled really long about sponsors, let's talk a little bit about what's coming up next, which would be Chris Voss. He is the vocalist and guitarist of the mighty three-piece band, The Record Company. Now, if you're a fan of Ginger, Wildheart, and The Sinners, I would implore you to check out The Record Company if you're not familiar with them. Do the two things sound like each other? Not at all. But you're at least in that direction. The Record Company isn't going to sound anything like the Wildhearts, but if you're a fan of the stuff that Ginger does with The Sinners, you cross over into these other areas like we've loved to talk about here at Thunder Underground throughout the past decade or so. I'm a fan of, I could find stuff in pretty much every genre of music, even genres that I don't like. I've eventually come to hear something that, even if I don't love it, I at least don't mind it, right? But with all that being said, I'm telling you that you should branch out as a fan of music if you only listen to one style. There's a random tangent for you, but The Record Company, that is coming very soon. Chris Voss. It was a very fun conversation to me. It lasted well over an hour. It's one of those conversations where it just felt like you're talking to someone you've known for a long time, and it was the first time that I had ever talked to him. So that will be coming up next week. But this week, right now, Ginger Wildheart is here. The Wildhearts' newest album, The Satanic Rites of the Wildhearts, comes out tomorrow, March 7th. If you're listening to this the day this drops. If you're listening to this later, Satanic Rites of the Wildhearts is out now. So check this album out. Something we talk about in the interview coming up is the fact that this album goes in several different directions style-wise. And the Wildhearts have been well known for doing this throughout their career. Ginger Wildheart is one of those guys that has the innate ability to do things a lot of artists can't, where his music can span the gamut of punk rock to extremely heavy metal, and it can also have a more, 70s retro feel at times. And it can all make sense together somehow. This man can elicit, you can listen to a Wildheart song and sound happy. It'll sound dark, depressing. It'll sound like punk rock. It'll sound like melodic rock. It'll sound like progressive metal. It's just beautiful to me that someone can do this. And there's bands that do this well, but then there's other bands that try to do this and just kind of fall on their face because they're really good at one thing and not at the other four things they're trying to do. Whereas Ginger Wildheart is always one of those guys that is pretty much good at everything he does, at least in my opinion. So the Wildhearts have all these albums you can check out previous to Satanic Rites, and I implore you to if you've never listened. It comes from that, that whole thing. And another thing I should have asked about, anytime you hear rock and roll from this area of the world, Ginger's from the UK, but there's a lot of these bands from Scandinavia, like Denmark and Finland and Sweden, that everything you hear, especially in this genre, when it like artists like Michael Monroe and Backyard Babies and all these other bands that are just so great at this style. Ginger excels at this style, but he also excels at everything else. That's it kind of just plays into what I just said. But anyway, the point is, you need to check out the Wildhearts if you have not. You need to check out everything Ginger's done, which actually you couldn't do that. It would take you forever. But, the key points, like I mentioned, the Sinners. The recent album from the Sinners came out a couple years ago. Great stuff. He's had other projects throughout the years. He was a part of Brides of Destruction, if you remember that super group from the early 2000s. I believe he was a member of that band for like 30 minutes. I don't know. It wasn't that long, but I believe he did not record on the album. But that album came out, or that band formed, and it kind of at a time period where it was like, when it was announced, I was like, holy shit, it was kind of like all these guys from stuff I loved that kind of wasn't popular in the mainstream at that time. You had like Nikki Sixx, and I don't remember who was in the initial iteration, but over the few years of existence, like Nikki Sixx, Tracy Guns, John Corabi, Ginger Wildheart. Around 2009 or 10, he joined Michael Monroe's band, which we speak about that here coming up in the interview on Michael Monroe's solo album, Sensory Overdrive. That's the only album he was a part of. We speak about that coming up, and then of course he's got several Wildheart albums since then, before then, all that. I'm going to quit rambling about Ginger Wildheart, and I'm going to let you listen to the man talk. Here is Ginger Wildheart of the Wildhearts.
Always good to speak to an American. I was always meant to live there, I think.
Really? What was it
I might still do.
What was it that kind of drew you to it?
What's that?
What was it that kind of drew you to that thought process?
Well, everything really. I mean, it was songs, it was music and film and TV. I mean, I grew up surrounded by, Happy Days, The Exorcist, and Kiss when I was a little kid, and that was just like, okay, I like that place.
Yeah. Well, man, jumping into the subject at hand, which is Satanic Rites, the Wildhearts, comes out here in just a couple weeks. Released the first single back in December. Failure is the mother of success. And like, one of the cool things to me about this era of music is the fact that your lead-off, single could be an 8-minute long song. Is that something you even think about in this day and age? Because it's not really like you're trying to fit into a radio format, or is that just me overthinking something?
Man, it was our record company.
Oh, really?
The guy that I'm working with in the record company, a guy called Dante Benuto, is the guy that signed the Wildhearts back in the day. He was our first A&R man. So we've come complete circle and we're working together again. But he's had so much experience, as much experience in what he does as I have in what I do. So I completely trust the guy 100%. So when he said, I want to do that as the first single, I'm like, okay, 8 minute long single, fair enough. But the thing about it is, it's the last song on the album. So it's got this huge kind of outro, which makes sense in the context of an album, but by itself, it's just this weird fucking single. It really fits with my sense of the absurd.
I'm glad you said that because that's exactly what I thought. I'm like, this is a cool song, but it's just kind of weird as a lead off single to me. And then when I got to listen to the full album the other day, it totally made sense when I heard it on the album.
Yeah. Well, it certainly is a weird ass single. But it's the Wild Hearts. I guess
Yeah,
it works with our kind of aesthetic.
right. Well, when you're writing a song like that that goes in several different directions and is really long, is it written like do you conceptualize that kind of entire thing before you start writing it, or is it kind of written in pieces and putting together, or how does that process go?
I tend to just, I'm just steering the car and the songs, the sat nav telling me where to go. A song like that, it starts out somewhere and then it decides that it wants to go over there. I don't even argue with the process anymore. I'm just like, okay, that's where we're going. Um, and some of the songs have got a little bit more of a traditional arrangement, and then some of my songs just go anywhere they want to go. And like I said, I'm not a critic anymore. I've had a few examples of as a songwriter of songs going on to do amazing things. I had a song on the first album that we ever did that I didn't want to put on the album. I was bullied into putting this song on the album, and the song went to pull a girl out of a coma. So I'm like, okay, I
Wow.
don't choose the songs that go on albums anymore. And I've had songs that have, talked people out of, suicide and things like that. I don't even argue anymore. I'm just like, use me. It's like I honestly feel that there's like a kind of um, a celestial committee up there, all just chipping in songs. That's why some of the songs are so fucking weird. Because I've got like a guy up there who's into thrash, and I've got a guy up there who's into pop, and they're all going, mine, my idea, mine. Sometimes I'm just like, can you not just slow down? I'm trying to write this on a piece of paper here. Yeah, it feels very organic, but a lot of the time, I don't know where they're going.
I mean, you kind of alluded to something else I wanted to ask, which is kind of using you as a vessel. A song like Hurt People. Through a lot of times in history, in recent history, you've been open about your mental health. When you write something like that, and there's a couple other songs in this album that kind of touch on it, is it, are you writing it for yourself cathartically, or is it more, let me put this out for to help other people?
Oh, definitely the latter. Obviously, it's my voice that the songs come through, and my accent that sings them, but my turn of phrase and stuff like that. But the song ideas, when I'm when I'm tuned into something, whatever it is, the universe, consciousness, God, whatever you want to call it, the language is music, and that comes through. But obviously, it's coming through me. So with my experiences, mental health has been a big part of my life. A song like that comes in, and again, I don't criticize. I just put this through and think, if this can help one person, then the world is a better place than it was when I arrived. Um, when you've been through as much up and down mental health issues as I have, if I can be of service to anyone, if I can help people, if I can talk to people through the music or directly, sometimes with the fans, that's all I want to do in life. It's then it's not just music as a job or as a hobby. It's music as a service, and that's what I feel like when if my music helps someone, it's bigger than being in a poster on a wall. You know what I mean? Much
Yeah.
bigger.
Is that something that you've always felt kind of since, like you mentioned, the song from the first album, helping someone come out of a coma, or is this something that's more as you've aged, you've started to feel that way?
It's something I've always had an element of me that's a spiritual element, but I've also drank and taken lots of drugs. And when I get drunk and high, my spirituality vanishes. It's all internal, it's all me, it's all about me. So even though the messages have been coming through, I just haven't understood them. And I've just, taken it for granted a little bit sometimes. But now after all of this time, I'm still writing songs. I mean, you got to remember, I'm not that much of a musician. I only know that many chords, and I don't know the names of some of them. I've got a guy in a band who tells me what chords I'm playing. So it's not like I'm a guy who sits around in his studio with his guitar on all the time. I never write on a guitar. I write when I'm walking my dog. I write when I'm walking in the countryside. So I figure that it's still coming through. There's got to be a reason for it. And then, when people start telling me that music's helped them along the way, and it doesn't matter what the song is. As a fan, I've had my life saved by music so many times. I know how sacred that relationship is between someone who loves music and the music they're listening to. So someone tells me that, that's the areas that we're dealing with, man, that's just like that's winning the lottery, isn't it? I mean, that's the dream. I never really wanted massive success and massive, tons of money. I've seen how that corrupts people and how it unfortunately kills some people. Um, Connecting with people hasn't hurt anyone, if quite the opposite, obviously. But I've been doing this for a long time, so to know that connection's still there and it's still working, man, that's worth more than all the platinum albums in the world.
That's pretty much what you kind of talked about in 29 Times the Pain, right? I mean, that connection with the music that you love. Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, it's medicinal. I mean,
Yeah.
people don't know what it is that affects people with music. And let's face it, there's a lot of people that don't really like music. They just buy it. They're just consumers. But the people that are affected by music, it's we're built on vibrations. The whole universe is built on vibrations. If you ever listen to any recordings of other planets or even recordings of trees and stuff, it's all harmony. It's all this noise in weird harmonies, maybe discord, minor harmony, whatever it is. Harmony and vibration is literally what makes the foundation of what we call life. So to me, it's not a surprise that music works on that kind of level. It works on people's vibrational center of themselves. Uh, that's what I get from it, and that's what I'm giving out. But medical science doesn't know what it does. The people that couldn't get this girl out of a coma, and there've been a lot of doctors trying to get this girl, not making a big deal about that instance, only because we're talking about it.
Right.
Medical science had given up. She was just lying there. And her brother went in and played her this album. She'd presumably been playing her a lot of music, reading her poetry and all the rest of it, played her this one album. And this fucking song that I didn't even want to put on the album, which was about my girlfriend, she just woke up and went, "What's this?" No, I ain't saying music's better than medicine, but I am saying it's as good.
I like that quote. But so this on this album, you've got a new lineup. What do Ben and Pontus, bring to the music that maybe, might set them apart from previous members?
Well, Pontus was standing in for us on a show. Our drummer's now is Charles Evans.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Sorry.
the drummer on the album is a guy called Cheb Nettles, who plays in a band called Gong, and he was called Dudge Gurdon. He changes his name every time he does a new project. So he called himself Dudge Gurdon on this album, but that's the guy on the album. John Poole, who plays bass, has been in the Wild Arts before. People who know the band are familiar with him. Ben is this guy who just seems biologically created to be in this band. Everything about him fits. He knows, he's an amazing singer. He's a great hang. He's a really funny guy, but he's a fucking wicked guitar player. I feel like Ozzy Osbourne when he discovered Randy Rhoads. And this guy is like proper good. So he brings like this fresh new energy, but also these skills that, well, we can take that places. We've never been a big lead guitar band. I can shred, but I'd rather play rhythm. I always wanted to be Malcolm Young.
Yeah.
He always wanted to be Angus. I'm like, this
Perfect.
is working. But having that kind of it's just another color to paint with. Having a genuine, authentic lead guitarist in the group, and everyone likes a fucking great guitar solo. So yeah, they bring a lot of youthful energy and a lot of skill. And John Poole, the bass player, just makes it funny all the time. I mean, if, I've never known anyone who makes people laugh, and it's so unorthodox. He's so wrong in the head. He's got such a weird sense of humor, but he's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a really, really good time.
The main thing that jumped out to me about Satanic Rites is how it's got a lot of different things going on, a lot of different styles in here. The last couple albums, were pretty consistent on the style. Was that a concerted effort, or is that just kind of like you mentioned earlier, the way you're writing and the way stuff came out?
Well, without getting too dark, I'd I'd been put in hospital. I got sectioned. My life had spun out of control, and it got really, really bad. So I got sectioned, and when I came out of hospital, I had no interest in music whatsoever. I couldn't even read about it or listen to it or anything. And then the first song came, and I'm like, oh, this is weird. I certainly wasn't shopping for songs. Second one came, I'm like, we got two now. Third one came, I'm pregnant again. We're going to have an album. And they came, boom, 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 boom. I didn't even argue with them. It came as it came. The different styles. I was just like, are we going to do one of these now? Okay, there's a ballad. You want to do? Okay, we'll do a ballad. I didn't argue with it at all. It really was, without getting too woo woo on you. It really feels like it's all taken place very meticulously. On the different styles, I have such an eclectic record collection that I couldn't write in one style if there was a gun against me head, which is fortunate because people are enjoying all the different styles. But that's why I always wanted to take the band in a lot of different styles. Um, when the songs came through, they were in a lot of different styles. I'm like, this works. Let's put it out there and see if anyone else thinks so. You never know until you get a record out and people start telling you what it's like. You can believe you've got the greatest album in the world, but it still might be shit. But people are coming back and they love the different styles. And I'm like, we got a deal. I like writing in different styles. So it's the future looks really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, one of those songs, Blue Moon over Brickburn, really jumped out to me, and it had a real kind of old school punk style to it, mixed with, kind of like a hard rock pop sensibility. Like your memories on just like writing that song and how it came together for you.
Well, when we were recording it, I was laughing my fucking head off because it just sounded like Rocky Horror Picture Show to me. The chorus, we had everyone in the booth singing the chorus, and it was just hilarious. And I was just thinking, how many people are going to pick up on Rocky Horror Picture Show in this? And no one has. But yeah, that's one of my favorite songs because it was written about my old well, the theme of it is my old school, but how terrible school days seemed to be. I hated school, and it just seemed to last forever and ever and ever. It was like a prison sentence that just never finished. And now I've had hangovers that lasted longer than the amount of time I've been in school, and you can barely remember it. So the song is about whatever you're going through, good or bad, you will get over it, and with a bit of distance, you'll forget really what the fuss was all about. And I went to visit my old school just when there was a supermoon where I come from in a place called South Shields, and my old school had been closed down. It was all boarded up, and there was like weeds coming through the concrete as weeds like to do, and it was amazing. I was like, wow, I lasted longer than my school. This place of hell, and I kicked its ass. So yeah, that was where that song came from.
That's great. Once something that always kind of intrigues me is like when once you have a bunch of songs and you've got an album worth of songs, like how long does the process of track ordering take for you?
Like I said, I don't really get involved in kind of any critical. area. I just take the songs, I demo the songs. Recently, I've started demoing the songs. I never used to historically, but I demoed these songs, and they happen to be 10 songs. I tend to write 10 songs for an album, so I don't know whether what came first, the 10-song album, or you know, yeah, having to make write 10 songs for an album. But these 10 songs came so quickly. I recorded the demos, and by the time we'd finished mixing the demos, there was a record deal on the table. And I'm like, okay, it's a 10-song album. It's I'm not arguing with any of this, thank you very much. Uh, but yeah, again, it was just like, I don't know why 10 songs, back in the 70s, I used to love music, and there'd be like 7 songs,
Yeah.
four on one side, three on the other. Albums used to be short. I mean, fucking hell, Rain in Blood by Slayer. It's like 20 minutes long.
Right.
I like that. But for some reason, I like making 10-song albums.
Like say on the new Troubadour Moon rolls right into, Fire in the Cheap Seats. And I mean those songs are drastically different in style. Is like putting those songs back to back something you think about? Or is that, because that to me seems like it would be a harder thing of where to place the song on an album than it would be on a song, something like 21st Century Love Songs, where the songs kind of, had the same style throughout the album. Yeah.
To be honest, I hate track listing. I hate
Okay.
writing set lists. I always get the people around me to help me with that, or
Oh,
sometimes just give them the job.
okay.
Um, I wrote the first 2 songs really quick, and like I said, I wasn't expecting to be writing anything, and then the songs just came through. So I fought for them two to be to 1 and 2. The last song was the final song I wrote, so I fought for that to be the last song, and then the rest of the songs, it kind of it sort of tells a story, but it doesn't have to be linear. It's not like a concept album, but it's just deal with your shit, and then your life will be better. Um, I let Dante from the record company pick the lineup, and I was really intrigued as to what order he was going to put them in, because I don't think
Hmm.
I could have put them in order. I wouldn't have known. I definitely wouldn't have put them in this order. And
Right.
then I heard the album, and I was like, I kind of get where he's going here, because he likes the idea of it being different styles, jarring against each other, if anything. Um, I I love the order of the songs. And he's an old school guy. He's an old school music lover like myself. So he does side one and side two track
Yeah.
listing. So side one ends with a really good fast song. Side two starts with a fucking arse kicker. It's he's better at it than me. So I don't have a lot to do with the order of the songs.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, speaking of Troubadour Moon, absolutely love that song. Was the like lyrical content of that written about someone you had specifically in mind, or was it written just kind of as the idea of someone?
Well, there's a lot of people it was written in mind.
Oh, okay.
I've known a lot of musicians who, in trying to get a foothold in this industry, listen to a lot of the experts. Now, the experts who, if they work in the industry, especially commercial music, they're not experts. They just want to sell things.
Right.
And I know a lot of people that their career failed, and they look in the mirror and they go, I've got nothing. I didn't even make the album I wanted to make. I made the album the record company wanted to make. And that has always been one of my biggest fears is to, the back in the day, there used to be bands who everyone was doing ballads. So there'd be these bands that got famous on ballads, and it would kill the band because they wanted to be taken seriously as a rock band. And it's a bit like these people, these famous people that make porn tapes, and then they're outraged when they get out. And, well, don't make a fucking porn tape, you know. Don't write shitty songs, and don't take advice from people who work in the corporate sector. Um, so it's written based on this guy who is still writing, but now he's writing because his heart and his soul are into it. Whereas maybe earlier on, he had commercial interests. He wanted to make money. He wanted the girls and all the rest of it. It was nothing to do with the music. And it's a careful what you wish for. It's a kind of a warning song, a cautionary tale. Uh, and musicians don't fall out of love with music. They fall out of love with the business. And this business eats people alive. It doesn't care. If you're doing well or if you're not doing well, it doesn't care about you. And people that fall into the trap of thinking, my manager really believes in me. Ain't the truth, man. Believe in yourself because that's all you're ever going to have. And especially when it comes to your music, man, that's so personal that it's dangerous if you take any advice on where to steer your musical ship. Do it yourself, and that's what that song's about. It's like just pay attention to what you think because your instinct is right.
Well, as someone that's been in this music business now for over 30 years, you've seen, two sides of like the recording process, like, the completely manual side and now completely digital. Like, do you miss the old school way or do you completely embrace the way it's done now? Or is there any difference for you as far as your process or what you care about?
I like change. I mean, I'm all for change. I mean, Bob Dylan started playing electric.
Yeah.
It's like I like change. You got to embrace it. It's inevitable anyway. So you might as well grab hold and have fun with it. Do I miss the big desks? Of course I do. I remember the days when, everyone would be racking out the coke on the desk and, people would be falling asleep drunk and you'd have to mix around them. I remember when you'd be doing a final mix and everybody would be on the board. The guitar player would be controlling the solo. You'd be basically playing the song in the mixing process, and then finally someone would be in charge of the fade out. I remember so many times they do the fade out wrong. You had to start again. Of course, I remember that, but it's like probably people remember horses were better than cars, but no, digital's made it much better for everyone. Everyone can get involved now. People can make records in the bedroom. I mean, the whole thing now is what's the music like? What do you want to say? Not like, how big a studio, how many tracks did you use? It's irrelevant now. But yeah, I'm from an old school background. I miss analog. I used to be I miss being impressed by people because computers do a lot of the work now. You push something in, you can see that the guy just knows the right plugin to use, but it's not real time honed skill like cutting a tape, editing on tape. I used to watch these guys taking my album and slicing it with a razor blade. And these guys are invariably drunk and pretty high. And they'd be splicing it and then putting together, and it was seamless. That is a skill that a lot of people don't really need to have skills on that of that level anymore. But again, for me, it's always been about the music. So how you record it. In a few years' time, I might be able to just go from my head to your ears, and that'll be cool. How's
Right.
the song?
I mean, you hear every once in a while about an artist like recording something in analog these days. Is that anything you would have interest in? Or
I've done it. It's just really
oh yeah,
expensive. I think it's more of a status symbol than anything practical.
yeah,
I hear about a lot of people spending a fortune on doing it on analog. It seems people spend a fortune on making a film on Super 8 or 16 mil to give it a look. It's still a shitty film, though, and then someone makes Blair Witch on a fucking potato, and it's amazing. So, again, it's all about the content. But, if you're a rich guy and you want to tell everyone, hey, we went old school on this one, yeah, yeah, for half a million, you can record your album on fucking analog. Good luck in finding a Neve desk these days.
right. Shifting slightly a bit here, when you did Sensory Overdrive with Michael Monroe, you're a co-writer on almost every song on, every song but one, I think. Did you come in with music that you had for other projects and kind of added to the mix, or was the band like writing together at the time, or how did that process go?
No, when I joined the band, they had a few songs. They were putting together a set list with some of Michael's old songs, some Hanoi songs, and then they had some originals. And I didn't like them. I love Hannah Rocks, huge Hannah Rocks fan, but I didn't like these new songs. They sounded like Stooges rejects. And being myself, being I've talked my way into and out of things my whole life. So I just thought all I got to do is write one song better than these ones, and then I'm in. My foot's in the door. And then once I had one song passed, and I was just like, now all I got to do is write the whole album. And it's what I do. If people need songs, I'll go, well, how about this one? How about this one? And before anyone else has had a chance to write something, I've put half a dozen in there. Plus, I kind of know where I wrote an album with Jason and the Scorchers that I had a very similar experience with, in as much as I know what Jason and the Scorchers sound like, probably as much as Jason and the Scorchers, and I know what suits Michael's voice as much as he does, and he might steer into garagey, Iggy and the Stooges territory, but Michael can hold a tune. And I'm like, I like him screaming his head off as much as anyone, but there's people that can only scream. Michael can sing. And that was one of the things I wanted to pull out of him was that voice of his that I knew he had. So it was easy, really. I give him a few melodic songs, and he was like, "Yeah." Me and Michael have very similar taste in old school music. So I write him a song that sounds like Cheap Trick. He goes, "Yeah," and he knows what album it sounds like. So it was easy, really. I took all the elements of my history that match his history, and we had a deal. But it was writing with a band that good is really easy. And we'd come in and we arrange everything together. And one of the things working with Dan Baird when I did the Jason and the Scorchers album was Dan Baird was just like, the Nashville way is if you're in the room, you're on the credits. And so a lot of the credits on the album was like because we were arranging it together. So I wanted to make it as democratic as possible.
Excuse me, I don't remember history wise, but did you make the decision to leave after that album? Because I mean, I love everything he's done since then, but I still love that one the most of the more current albums. So I was just curious.
Well, my first and main focus was to get Michael back on top. He was had a few kind of records that didn't do so well. He had some albums that he's not very happy with. So I just thought I want to make an album that he's happy with, that he sings well, and I want to make the songs strong. And he did. The album did really, really well. And I figured, yeah, we're on track. What I hadn't figured in is corporates, specifically management. Now, Michael's manager and I just butted heads all the time. And it came to a point where I was just like, this is just not working. It seems like every idea that I had, the manager was just like, no, we don't do that. And it got really personal from time to time. And eventually I said to Michael, look, it's me or your manager. And he said, well, I'm going to go with my manager. And I'm like, okay, but I don't think she's good for you. I left. 6 months later, he sacked the manager. But yeah, again, when you're working on a team and someone's working against the team, not one of those people that can just sit and take that. I've got to be like, can no one see that this is like some kind of ego trip for this person? They're not actually doing what's right for the group. And yeah, I couldn't get on with I couldn't work with Michael's manager another day.
Gotcha. Well, being someone that's always been a prolific songwriter, and like you said, it kind of, comes fast to you. Like when you're doing something like Ginger Wildheart and the Sinners, does that style of music come just as natural as anything else? Is it any music when you're writing?
Only if I like the music. If it's
Yeah.
a style of music that I like
Yeah.
with the Sinners being, like Georgia Satellites, Jason the Scorchers, Long Riders, Lone Justice, Jayhawks, Wilco. I mean, there's tons of these alt country bands, and the Stones. I've grown up with a lot of music like that. And if I'm doing something like the Sinners and writing for that, I know when I've written a good song because I like that style of music. I couldn't tell you if I wrote a good blues song because I don't like listening to blues or reggae. I wouldn't really know what, but I can do something like Mutation, this project that I did, which is like kind of noise core, because I love noisy music. So I know if I've nailed it. But unless it's a style of music or a genre that I love, I wouldn't tackle it because I wouldn't know if it's any good or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Are you someone that's always writing, or do you just write specifically in the time, like in the moment of when you're working on, say, Sinners, or you're working on, a new Wild Hearts album?
Um, Well, I think I'm what's called a clairaudient. Now, clairvoyance can hear voices, and clairaudience can hear music, and I can hear music all the time. I mean, seriously, I walk a lot, and that's when I'm tuned into nature or whatever it is. And there's music all the time. If I'm writing an album, I'll write for that album. So I don't sit down and have tons and tons of songs and say, well, I'll put that there and I'll put that, that'll be good for that band. I literally write an album from start to finish, and then, I'm done, and then it's just a load of musical noise in my head again. So I kind of direct and orchestrate the noise to write an album, and then after that, it's just like this weird fucking radio going on.
Coming up this year, you've got some UK dates here next month, and you've got European festivals. Like, what else can we expect throughout the 2025 from the Wild Hearts?
Oh man, we got some dates coming up. We got it in March. It's going to be spring. It's going to be the album, the tour, but spring. It's been a brutal winter where I come from, so I can't wait for March. And then soon as March is done, we're in the studio demoing the next album in
Oh, wow.
April.
Okay.
And then after April, May, I think we go to Spain. And then June, the festivals start kicking off and stuff like that. I want to do some more UK dates before the end of the year, but pretty much I'm waiting to see how it goes. It seems to be. I tell you what it feels like, Trent. It feels like when you go to an amusement park, and you're getting ready, you're getting in the car, you're driving there, you're waiting in the queues, you get on the ride, and there's always time to get off. At any point in that process, there's time to just go, oh, I'll change my mind. As soon as the roller coaster starts moving, you could still get off, but as soon as it clicks onto that chain thing, it drags you up to the first drop. It's too late to get off, and I feel like that's what this feels like. This album, it's almost like it's going now. It's off. The whatever's going to happen with the Wild Arts is already kind of happening. Um, so I can't tell you exactly how it's going to go because I don't know, but I do know it's going to go. I can't tell you how the roller coaster is going to be, but I know it's going to be. It ain't going to be boring, and that's how it feels. It really does feel like that. It feels like it's gaining a natural momentum, which isn't always the case for music. Sometimes it's like pushing a big ball of shit uphill. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
this one just seems to be boom. It's hit the chain and it's on its way up. So I don't know what's going to happen this year, but I know it's going to be a great year for us. I also have a hunch it's going to be an insane year for everyone. In fact, the next 2 years, I think, are going to be the most insane years in human history, bar none. Everything we think we know is going to change. Everything we know about history is going to change. Everything we know about politics is all going to change. There's going to be a spiritual shift, a political shift. God knows what's going to happen on a geographical level as far as like war, the potential for war is concerned. Or there's just going to be, end up, they just say, look, we've been bullshitting all along. It's just one new world order. And, it's fucking China, Russia, and America. Who knows? But I know there's going to be a lot of changes in the next 2 years. All I want to be is part of the soundtrack to that. In the end of days, while the chaos is going on, I just want people to be listening to the Wild Arts while everything's falling out this fucking sky.
That's perfect summation of your career, basically, right?
Yeah, well, you know what would be fucking hilarious? I've been doing this for a long time, and I won't tell you how old I am, but I'm pretty old. It would be hilarious that if I got my success now, you know, apart from the fact that there'll be so much, I've got so much gratitude for things now, which hasn't always been the case. But if I could do something now that gives everybody over the age of 40 or 45 like some kind of hope that they can do stuff in music, how fucking mental would that be? That would be much better than being famous when you were young, being famous when you're old. That would be the best punchline that I could ever hope for.
Yeah, everybody, all the music you love were by someone in their 20s usually. So it's like, yeah, that'd be great to have that effect on people. Like, is the
Haven't it?
idea you said to start, demoing the next album in April is the idea to put out a new album quickly? Like, kind of like in the early days of the Wild Hearts, you guys had 3 albums in the first 3 years, right?
Again, it's down to the record company.
Okay.
If this album does well, I don't think they'll want to put anything out really quickly. But
Right.
for me, I want to get the ideas down quickly. I want to record with a band. I want to start creating sounds and see where this is going to go because that's mine. But
Oh, so it's
once we
more of just a sense to capture the moment for you right now?
Yeah, and
Oh,
and
okay.
if the record company want to record, if they get off on the demos and they want to record straight away, I'm down with that. But it's almost like that's not my business. My business is to ride the wave while it's there. Um, so I just feel like it's got such a natural momentum. I just don't want to lose that.
I'm absolutely loving the new album. Been a long time fan, so it's quite an honor to talk to you. So I appreciate you taking the time with me.
Thank you so much, Trent. It's great, and let's hope that old rocker thing is going to happen. Would it be great? Like a guy doing well in music who's just full of tattoos and scars and gnarly stories about being in jail, and ah, I would like that. So
Right.
you never know. But thank you so much, Trent. It was a pleasure talking to you, mate.
There you go, Ginger Wildheart of the Wild Hearts. A huge thank you to John Freeman of Freeman Promotions for his ongoing support of this podcast. And of course, a massive thank you to Ginger for taking some time out there to hit me up on Zoom and talk about the brand new album from the Wild Hearts as well as tons of other great stuff throughout his career. And speaking on that brand new album, Satanic Rites of the Wild Hearts, it is out March 7th. So if you're not listening to this the day it drops, it is out now. So check out that album and of course check out all the other stuff we talked about. Michael Monroe's Sensory Overdrive, if you haven't listened to that before with Ginger. Ginger Wildheart and the Sinners. We've got Ginger 5. We've got all kinds of solo albums and Wildheart albums throughout the years that you can dig through. The guy's prolific. The guy co-wrote Brand New Hate by the Backyard Babies, which is their most well-known song. And he co-wrote, like I said, some of those amazing songs with Michael Monroe, as long as many other great artists throughout the years. So this was a huge honor for me. Like I said up front, longtime fans, so very happy to be able to get this talk with Ginger out, be able to do this and be able to, share it with the world once again. And if this is your first time listening, I'm really glad you checked this out and went all the way through. And I'd like to let you know that you've got 412 previous episodes you can check out, one of which being is Michael Monroe. Such a blast to be able to do that one. Another one that I did a couple years ago was Dee Snider of Twisted Sister. We've also got Jeff Tate of Queensryche, who was on here. Adrian Vandenberg, formerly of Whitesnake, and of course Vandenberg. Frank Cannon of Tesla has been on here multiple times. Brian Wheat of Tesla. The almighty Glenn Hughes has been on here a couple times. One of the greatest vocalists of all time. LaJean Witherspoon of Seven Dust. John Connolly of Seven Dust. Jason Todd, formerly of Shinedown. RJ Hell of Hellstorm. I've had on members of Three Doors Down, Saliva, Motley Crue, Megadeth, Testament, LA Guns, Slaughter, Prong, Typo Negative, White Zombie, Helmet. The list, my friends, is great and long. I've also had on members of Living Color, Leonard Skinner. Tons of great artists throughout the years. Did I even mention Gene Simmons of Kiss? If I didn't, there you go. TheThunderUnderground.com. You can find all the socials there. You can also listen to the podcast directly there. But wherever you're listening to the podcast right now, like, subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Also, while you're there, if you don't mind reviewing the podcast, if you're on Spotify or SoundCloud or Apple Podcast, any of those things, it's always a great help if you hit that 5-star review or if you just like or share or comment on any post you see on any social platform. That's how they all work. It helps get the word out and it helps spread this around to more people. Like I said, all the socials are listed on the website: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, TikTok, on all those. I think I said Instagram. So give a follow. All that. Appreciate your time. appreciate the sponsors. Our brand newest sponsor, Rocklahoma Bitches. So glad to have them on board. We've also got our long-running sponsors, Sunset Tattoo and DEB Concerts. A huge thank you to all of them. Huge thank you to Freeman Promotions. And of course, a massive thank you to the one and only Ginger Wildheart. And until next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.